3-gamer for Thanksgiving. In NFL, it should be a fun one. Always love these slates. Have had some really good success in the past on Thanksgiving days on the 3-gamers, trying to find little ways to get different, which we're going to have to do because it's only 3 games. Sheets, any overall thoughts before we jump straight into game by game here?
Yeah, so one kind of fun thing I have to remember from last year is that I play all the different slates in these short days, whether it be the playoffs or the Thanksgiving. And what I do is I play the classic slate, which is whether 2 or 3 games or whatever, and then I play all the showdown slates. So what I do is we're going to upload the projections to SaberSim and to whatever. And what I did the last couple of years, well, a couple of times, is I would just use the projections that, from the classic slates. The projections are the same, regardless of whether you're in showdown or whatever. So I would just upload those to the showdown slate, and I would just run them like this instead of like having to create a whole new file. And it took me like 10 or 12 slates to realize that I was getting like 0% kickers in any of my showdown slates. And I was wondering why I was getting 0 of it. And that's because classic slates don't have kickers. So I imported my projections from the classic slates and getting zeros on like all the kickers. And it took me like 10 slates to figure that out. So we're going to try to make sure that we get different showdown slates uploaded separately from the classic slates. But overall, pretty pure 3-game slate, nice island games. It's a short enough slate where you have to worry about dupes and stuff like that and considering leaving money on the table, but it's not that short where you have to do that, So that's my overall view. I'd love to find a way to get different based on what I'm seeing right now. So hopefully you could turn me into I'm in that direction. Right now, I'm just probably looking at some very popular options.
Yeah, I hear you.
We do have running backs that are now out that are causing some shakeups, but all that's doing is probably creating more chalk. But we'll take a look at it.
Sure, we'll take a look at it. We'll get into it. Let's go game by game. I'll pull up your screen and try and do it that way. Let me just see if I've got everything right. Yeah, I do. And then, why don't you start us off here real quick?
So I guess this is the second best option, I suppose, or the Detroit guys. That games in the dome. Detroit has some good weapons, and you think you would want to play these guys. You could play Gibbs. Well, that's the only thing is so there's a split running back situation here in Detroit. So maybe you don't want to prioritize the running backs for Detroit. But the receivers, boy, I'm just not even getting them much. St. Brown is obviously my top-owned guy, 20% of him. And then, we got the touchdown that didn't help us with Jameson Williams last week.
Yeah, annoying. I know, man. I know. Finally comes, and we couldn't even get there with it.
But listen, I haven't gotten paid yet with him, so we're gonna have to keep doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play some of that. I guess obviously. Laporta looks pretty good too. Now on the Green Bay side, you have Aaron Jones who's not playing, so you have AJ Dillon who is gonna get all the work. To me, it feels like a fade. I don't particularly like the game script for him. I don't particularly think he's that great anyway, and I like Detroit's defense, so I'm probably going to be under on him. I prefer the other kind of like backup running back later. We'll get to in a minute. But I'm probably off of most of Green Bay. And Detroit seems to be like the natural second best team, I think, to go after on this slate. Maybe not. Maybe they could be second or third. But I don't know what kind of Green Bay exposure I'm really going to get here on the offensive side.
I hear you. I hear you, but I think I'm going the exact opposite direction.
Good. Let somebody be different here. I can't do it. I can't do it. Perfect.
So I like the love stacks.
There you go. All right, good.
And by the way, and Detroit is good and all this stuff, but you still get to play in the dome. Jordan Love has, look, I'm not going to go wild about Jordan Love in general, but I do think that there's upside here. And it's not just about Love, though. It's like you have the cheap receiving core and you've got Jaden Reed questionable. I just want to point out, Christian Watson should be the third string receiver on this team. Jaden Reed and Dobbs are really good. And This Dotavian Wicks is a sneaky play for me tonight. So I like the idea of getting Wicks, or like, again, whether Reed's in or out. I think that like they're starting to look for Wicks a little bit. He's a way to get different on this slate, which is what we want. So I like the love stacks. Wicks or Reed, Dobbs or Watson. Those are the sort of ones I'm splitting up as of right now, but you could play it any which way. I think that there's a lot of options here, and I think it's going to be low owned. So I like the idea of getting exposure to this one.
Is it Tucker Kraft season at tight end? Musgrave is out.
I know. I'm thinking about it. It's not like problem is Musgrave's really talented and a part of it. I got to dig a little bit more into Kraft, actually, to be honest with you. I don't know what kind of a pass catcher or anything like that he is, but sure, you could throw him on the list. I mean, he's another. It's just a cheap way to where you can get the exposure to the big guys you want everywhere else, and one of those guys being Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think that he's very clearly one of the best receivers on the slate. I don't think there's any question. And I prefer Gibbs over Montgomery, but Montgomery will be the lower owned of the two. And I like again. I'm going, like you said, we're going back to the Jameson Williams thing. We're gonna ride that again.
Absolutely.
And I think that's another way we can get different. So I actually think we've done a pretty good job getting different. I do think Laporta is one of the best options of the slate, but there's other really good options as well. He's going to have some ownership. They're all good. Really, I like the part of the reason I like the Green Bay sides because I like the Detroit side so much. I could tell myself a story with Detroit where I could play like a St. Brown and a Gibbs if I wanted to, and play the two cheap receivers, maybe even the tight end is one of them with Love. And I still have money left to spend elsewhere in a game that I think has as good a chance as any to be very, very high scoring. Maybe you could say Washington, Dallas. Maybe you could say San Francisco, Seattle. I think this might be the highest scoring game of all of them. So I also could see it dud out and totally have me wrong. But I think my overall stance is I'm probably going to be well overweight on this game.
Tucker Kraft was also, as I'm reading through, he was like a tiptoe away from actually scoring a touchdown last week.
Yep. I forgot about that.
And yeah, I think he's a good play.
Yeah.
So I like him. Him and Jameson Williams. There you go.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is a tough game. What do you think?
I mean, what Dallas is going to be where all the ownership is, I imagine.
Yeah.
All and everything. It's a 3-game slate though. Anything's possible, and they're not the only skill position guys on the field on the slate. Okay, but nonetheless, currently that's just where I'm getting most of my Saberson builds are getting me there. Most of my projections are getting me there, and between Pollard, all the receivers, the defense, everything, and then even on the Washington side, McLaurin looks good, Dotson looks good, Curtis Samuel looks good. I mean, the totals, the total is the highest, not by that much, but. They always seem to deliver nowadays, Dallas and Washington. They drop back and throw the ball a lot. This is where all the ownership's going and where you have to try to be different, I think. But right now, like I said, this is where I'm getting right now, and I'm trying to figure out how to get different. Maybe like you said, maybe the Golden State, maybe the Green Bay or something like that.
Yeah. Look, it's going to be hard to be. Dallas is just, like you said, wherever all the ownership's going to Dallas in one way or another, whether it's Ferguson, Lamb, Cooks is going to be really popular. Well, not really popular. He'll be fairly popular. Pollard is going to be really popular. What about if Dowdle plays? Why can't we play Dowdle?
There you go. That's something.
Right? Like that's a way to get different. It also changes your build. So even if they just score similar points, which by the way, he's outscored Pollard a couple times, maybe that's a way to do something, On the other side, Antonio Gibson is not officially out yet, although I think it's likely that he's out. If he actually somehow played, which I doubt, I think he's interesting at 4,500. It's weird that Brian Robinson is getting as much ownership projected as he is, but I guess it's just because you have to play somebody, I like the idea of going the other way with this game and hoping that Washington and their 55 passes can keep it close. So that means playing more of Howell. Then this is going to be my theme for this thing is I'm going to be playing the quarterbacks who are not the favorites. Maybe you play Howell with a McLaurin. I think Dotson's going to be low owned. Samuel's going to be lower owned than I think he should be. I'm kind of into all those guys. I like Logan Thomas a lot. He will have some ownership, but I think that's my sort of way of treating this game is to maybe go with a Dowdle or a Pollard. Include one of the receivers maybe if you wanted to stack this game up. I guess Ferguson would be other than Lamb. I'm trying to get anyone but Lamb. Lamb is the very obvious play and probably the right play. Cooks is going to be popular. I like him. No one's going to play Gallup. I'll take a shot there. Maybe this is the slate sheets that we get all of our guys, the Gallups and the Jameson Williams, to all cash in at once. How about that?
Absolutely.
If those two guys are on like the big winning lineup and we don't have any of it, I'm going to feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Dallas defense obviously in play. All 6 defenses are in play. Okay, that's
of course. Yeah.
By the way, I always have Brian Robinson as probably. Well, it's weird. Like my ownership projection, I have him like 19%, but the ownership that SaberSim is using to put him in like contest sim stuff is like 8%.
It's because they're not. They technically have Gibson in right now.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it just depends on what happens with Gibson.
That makes sense. But okay. So San Francisco, Seattle. I like Charbonnet more than AJ Dillon, if that means anything. As far as the backup running back that's going to be taking over or whatever. Now, I'm not even actually sure he doesn't play. I mean, he's not ruled out yet. Kenneth Walker. I wonder if we're just supposed to play. What's the price on Charbonnet? Nah, I was gonna say if Kenneth Walker plays, to play Charbonnet anyway.
I would agree with that because I think Kenneth Walker is actually hurt.
Yeah. So I like Charbonnet. I guess this would be. I guess I prefer this game as a kind of like a stack. You like the Green Bay one a little bit better. I like this one a little bit better. And the problem with the San Francisco guys is as usual, you don't know which one to play. But you know what? As the Millie Maker winner showed, you don't need to play any of them. Just play Purdy. And just play Purdy and be done with it. And there's, on a 3-game slate, there's a certain degree of wisdom to that, if you want to know the truth. But all those guys are in play for San Francisco. I have no problem playing multiple of them in the same lineups on a 3-game slate. And I hope you guys realize what all of them mean. Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Kittle and McCaffrey. I don't think you need to go for other baloney than those guys. And on the Seattle side, all those receivers are in play assume they all play, like Metcalf, Lockett, and Jigba. Noah Fant, what has he been doing? 2 targets, 3 targets. I still, even though it's like 10 fantasy points total this season. I don't know what's going on with that.
It's been just miserable to watch. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I should listen and not play him. And although in Showdown, like to get all my money back from what I lost earlier in the day, it's definitely gonna get some Disley, I think. Disley with the big target share, 3 and 2 in the last 2 games. I guess this would be my favorite non-Dallas game. I mean, you're choosing between 3, right? But overall, again, I would let Saberson help me out here. I could play 3 receivers from a team. I could play 4. I could play quarterback versus defense. It's literally, you could do whatever you want on this slate, but you got to take a stand somewhere. So my stand is going to be probably no AJ Dillon if I have to, and then over on Jameson Williams, like you said, maybe the Michael Gallup idea, like you mentioned, maybe that's a good idea, and then. I don't know. What do you like in Seattle? I spoke too long about this game.
No, it's tough. I mean, first of all, I'd like to know whether Geno Smith is going to play. I think he's supposed to.
Oh,
but
he's actually questionable?
Yeah, he's like. I mean, these guys all got hurt last week. Every one of them. So
that's right. They had what's his name come in, right?
Yeah, and Metcalf's questionable. Walker's questionable. Walker's probably out. It's really hard to analyze this one without knowing that. But even if you have Drew Lock in there, I still think Metcalf, like the ownership will just plummet. And I think Metcalf is still a very strong play. I think Smith and Jigba is a very strong play. I don't think I would play them together unless Geno was playing, probably. But I do think I'd play one of them even if Geno wasn't playing. On the San Francisco side, everyone's going to go to McCaffrey, which I think makes sense. One thing that you can do, I mentioned some other weird running backs. I think that you could take a shot on, even in the same lineup, I think you could actually play Elijah Mitchell as look, it's a 3-gamer. I'm looking for ways to get different. That's one thing that came across my mind. Juwan Jennings feels a little bit too thin, but also I was considering it. George Kittle is probably going to be the lowest of the quote unquote like studs for them. I don't mind doing that. And my favorite play overall for them is Debo. So that's how I'm treating San Francisco. But, in my nature and because we're playing tournaments, probably going to be trying to be below the field on the guys 25+% or higher and trying to be above the field on the other guys. But, Metcalf, Smith and Jigba, and Charbonnet is going to get some ownership because he's cheap, and that's totally fine. It's a tough matchup, and I'm probably going to have some of it because I think he'll catch balls out of the backfield at the very least anyway. But I don't think he's that much better of a play than A.J. Dillon. Actually, they're pretty close, those two. And even, by the way, Dillon's still questionable. So even though it's the day before, we still have a lot of news to wait on. I like the idea of the love stacks, the Howell stacks, and you can still use those big guys, but you're pairing, some of these low-owned receivers like Jahan Dotson in there. You're getting Curtis Samuel at lower ownership. Tavian Wicks at low ownership if you're playing a love stack. And you could run the chalk of Gibbs and St. Brown on the other side. And I'm higher on the Green Bay game, and I like the Washington side of the Dallas game just because I think they're going to have to throw the ball a lot just in a PPR. On FanDuel, I would not like it as much because I think that they're going to get there. So maybe you don't even need to play Howell in that, but I think you could play like 2 Washington receivers without Howell and feel totally good about it because it's a PPR machine. They're gonna throw the ball probably 50 times. So that's the way I'm treating this one. And I think all games are stackable. And like I said, I just slightly lean the first one, but I will have exposure to all 3.
All right. Hope everybody. I'm going to update projections as close to lock as possible. I'm actually around until probably through the first game actually. So I'll update projections as they come up. And everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Somebody take something down.
That sounds good. Good luck to everybody and happy Thanksgiving.